Sorry. Just a minute. So we'll go live in, I think, now or 5 minutes, Sophie? Oh, now is okay. Sounds good. We'll do this. We can do this.
Okay.
She'll let us know when we're live, and then we'll go from there.
I think we're live now.
Oh yeah, it says. Sounds good. We'll wait a bit to let the audience shuffle in. And start. Okay. We'll start. Well, hello everyone. Thank you for joining our weekly climate or virtual climate strike this week. Today we're going to be having a very interesting and important conversation with Roxy Cohen here. My name is Aminah. I'm a weekly strike coordinator for Fridays for Future Toronto. And thank you so much for joining us, Roxy. So I'll go a bit into your bio and all the amazing things you do. So I've had the opportunity to work with Roxy directly at the September 20th teach-in, but she's also done a lot of amazing things for a very long time. So in grade 11, he started an eco club, and I think that's something a lot of youth can relate to, is being in part of some eco club and starting somewhere. But you've also done a lot of things since then. So if you're confused about where you're going, or if you have any questions like that, you can also ask that in the chat. She co-founded the Conscious Minds Camp and Co-op. She also supports the Oasis Food Hub, um, a Jamestown community model for an urban climate resilient food hub that grows food all year. And I think that's something very important. They can also ask questions about food security. Roxy is now in her PhD of education at York University, where she leads a team of professors, graduate students, community leaders, and educators in the Rooted and Rising leadership program. And that includes Fridays for Future Toronto. We fully support that. And this is the first time that it's being run. And she is committed to transforming the education system. Her goal is to uplift young people to collaborate with older generations and lead the transformation once again into balanced, healthy, diverse, and respected living. So thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you for having me. I'm so in love with Fridays for Future, and I feel so honored to have been asked to talk with you today.
Well, so today's topic, as what was posted on our social media, is a conversation around wellness and everyday activism. And I think especially now when we see certain incidents or things happening around the world, um, and in Fridays for Future Toronto and multiple organizations, the goal has been climate justice, right? How do we get justice from this? But it can all be very draining. Um, so that's the sort of conversation we'll be having. But before we get there, we'll be doing a land acknowledgement. So we wish to acknowledge this land on which we're holding an online rally. So in Toronto, for thousands of years, it has been the traditional land of the Huron-Wendat, the Seneca, and most recently, the Mississaugas of the Credit River. Today, this meeting place is still the home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island, and we're very grateful to have the opportunity to work on this land. There's also an acknowledgement of the privilege of having online space, and the importance of using it to uplift voices and recognize the struggles that continue today of Indigenous people in Turtle Island. So I guess from the land acknowledgement, which is repeated so many times and it can sound the same, is there a specific way, Roxy, that you like to place yourself within it or connect to it?
Yeah, I think that's a really great question. Thanks for posing it. I mean, so for myself, my ancestry, I'm Jewish on both sides of my family for a long time back. Unlike many Jewish families, one side of my family on my dad's side has been in North America for a very long time, some as early as the early 1800s. So coming over alongside colonizers and being complicit and being part of the, group that came alongside in their own marginalized position at the time, but to really, start new life and find abundance here in Turtle Island. So I find myself very much implicated in the land acknowledgement and the history of this land. And I think the best way for myself that I've been able to kind of understand it in a way that feels authentic and feels true to me is to remember that the moment that my ancestors came onto this particular land, we became treaty people. And like every single one of us who resides on Turtle Island, we are treaty people. We're supposed to be following the treaties that Indigenous nations have set to guard and protect the land and the people on this land. So for myself, being based in Toronto, its original name Tekaronto, it's really important for me to understand the dish with one spoon treaty, for example, that asked me to treat the land as if it were one dish and there's only one spoon for us to share in all of the abundance and for us all to get nourished, to not use knives, to not use violence, but to use a spoon in order to make sure that everyone is fed. And there's responsibilities and there's behaviors that go along with that treaty. And that's also for me to follow. That's also for me to step into and live my side of the treaty so that my Indigenous brothers and sisters and allied nations can flourish and find their own abundance as I find mine kind of intertwined, but, sovereign.
Yeah, that's very well put. And it's also, I've never, because I've always, so like you can acknowledge what treaty or what territory you're on, but I think sitting down and actually reading what has been signed and reflecting on that, the way you've just done right now with comparing spoons to the knives, and you can reflect on your everyday behavior from that and also on the wider implications colonialization has had on so many generations and communities. So thank you for that.
Yeah. And to remember too that these treaties, they're laws. It's a different legal system than the Canadian legal system, but these are laws that govern the land. So as you say, to know those laws and to reflect on them and reflect on our place in them. Yeah.
So now kind of going into,
and
so now kind of,
sorry.
I'm
gonna as well. I would love to hear your perspective as well on that. Joining us online from what we know is Edmonton.
Yeah.
I'm wondering for you, like, why is it important for you to kind of sit and reflect on land and land acknowledgements and Indigenous law?
For sure. I think it's always, so I live in Treaty 6 territory, and so Edmonton is Treaty 6 territory for the most part. And I think, so there was always a recognition of what happened. And I think in my classes in school, a certain amount of it would always be dedicated. So there would be at least 2 chapters in your book, I think starting in grade 6 or like earlier on, where they talked about reconciliation and like the horrific events that happened through history and the differing circumstances that are faced by people from different communities. But in reality, the teachers that would be teaching it wouldn't show that. There would be, why are we learning about this again? There would be a lot of conversations like that happening in classrooms. Not all the time. There were definitely a lot of teachers who were very respectful and, taught it in a very good way that was easier for young people who are just coming into the world to understand it. But there were also teachers who would, it's like if you look at a Facebook comment section for a news, like when an article gets published and you see those points of views, definitely reflects that. So I think for me, a land acknowledgement, it's shifted over the years. So when I came to Toronto, it became something else, and when I came back to Edmonton, so now I'm because over here, the Indigenous community, it's like they are my neighbors. They're very present and the relationships are different. So I don't know. I think it's like continuing to develop what my relationship to the land acknowledgement is. But definitely here, it's to build bridges with people and encourage discussions to get to a better place in reconciliation. Because I felt like in Toronto, my overall feeling in the community I was in and the people I was surrounded by, there was a great understanding for it, but I don't always feel the same thing here. So I think to me, the land acknowledgement, I guess, is getting to a better place with people. And yeah, so, but still there's a lot of reflection and a continuing process.
Yeah, I think you said it so well there when you said you're developing your relationship with it. I think that's the place where we all need to be with it, is in relationship, because ultimately that's what the land acknowledgement is about. It's about acknowledging relationships between nations and land that have existed since time immemorial, and asking us to reflect on our relationships with Indigenous peoples and with the land itself. So I aspire to also be developing my relationship with the land acknowledgement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this kind of because whilst we have these conversations, I think it's also when we talk about these marginalized communities, there can be a burden on us, or I think in the activism in this. So I guess we could kind of bridge this and go to our next question. And thank you for liking my insight. So what does wellness in activism? I guess I can also hop on that in a bit, but yeah.
Yeah, great. Yeah, I mean, wow, what a deep question. There's so many possible paths to go down. I mean, you know, at first front, when you say an activism and wellness, they seem like almost contradictory terms. You know, when we think of wellness, we so often think of, you know, relaxation and calming and kind of slowness, focused inward. Whereas when we think of activism, it's very kind of in your face, you know, it's very active. It's an activation. It's persistent, it's consistent, and it often comes from a place of anger, justified anger and sadness at the injustices happening around the world. But I think that from a different perspective, it's entirely the same thing, or at least very intertwined. Because for me, activism is a response to an unwell world. We do not live in a healthy society. We do not create circumstances for people, for animals, for plants to live well. And that's why we're activists, because we are aware and we notice that things are happening that are preventing people from being healthy and from being happy, and that things are preventing our animal kin from being healthy and being happy and activating the beauty and abundance of life. And so when we're in our activism, it's coming from, maybe it's anger, but below that anger, there's like a deep love for self, for others, for nature. And I think to think about wellness and activism is to understand that what I'm really craving, because I can only speak for myself, what I'm really craving is and I can feel good and happy all day long because I know that not only am I good, but I know that my kin are good. I know that the environment around me that allows me to thrive and to exist is good. It's cared for, and I'm a part of that caring network. And I think in my own activism, that's really what I'm striving towards, is to just like straight up feel good in life. And I think, you know, whether we're aware of it or not, like, that's so much of the point of this life, is to find what makes you feel good and to pursue that in a way that, of course, does not step on others and doesn't, you know, from a human rights perspective, right? We don't prevent others from living a happy life as well. And I think from that perspective, then we start to understand that to step fully into our activism is to step fully into ourselves and our own nature and what makes us feel good, what gives us purpose in this life. And to do that, you have to take care of yourself. I mean, it sounds like such a cliche, and it is for a reason, you know, that kind of, as we can't fly right now, you remember anyone who's been on a flight in the airplane, you have to put on your mask before you can put on someone else's mask. Like if you aren't breathing, how are you going to help somebody else breathe? If your water is unclean, you know, how are you going to be healthy enough to be there for others and to stand up against that injustice that we're seeing around us? So I know that we have many questions that are going to get into the other points that I want to raise, but I guess just to sum up my perspective on this one, it's activism and wellness. Like to be well is to be able to produce a well world, like a healthy world, and that's what we're after. So activism and wellness, to truly step into it, to truly like be that activism, is to take care of yourself and to take care of your family and to take care of the land.
Yep, most definitely. I think that was so, again, well put together. And I think when I imagine wellness and activism together, it's I think a lot of the focus happens to be on the work we're doing and creating wellness, but not being well. And I think so then the next question would be, how does an individual pull back? And how do we as people overcome, those barriers that kind of keep us focused on solving that big issue?
Yeah, well, this is a question that I have personal experience with. As you mentioned in my introduction, I co-founded a youth cooperative called Conscious Minds Co-op that runs a sleepover camp, a 2-week sleepover camp every summer, not this summer, but every summer, for young people to come together and practice the world that we want. And I was doing that for about 6 years. And currently, I'm still on the board of directors for Conscious Minds. I still support, I'm the treasurer, I help, with all the money stuff and check in with everyone, but I'm not actively organizing. And about 1.5 years ago, I took a major step back, which was a huge thing because, as I'm sure for many of you that are listening to this, like it was my life. It was my sense of purpose to be a part of this community, to be a part of this group that was, changing the world, creating the world that we want. And for so long, it was like so inspiring and energizing. And, at some point down the line, folks in the group, a cooperative, like any collaborative initiative, is about more than one person. Right? It can't just be about me and the organization. I would never want it to be. And when there's lots of people, there's differing, ideas of what's needed. There's different, even personal needs that need to be met within the organization, different visions. And I was starting to feel myself kind of not being as in mesh with the community as I wanted to be. And I started to kind of build up a little bit of like negative talk and a little bit of resentment. And I started finding myself saying, taking up more work, and there was, tensions in the group. And I found myself saying things like, oh, what would they even do if I left, like how would they handle it? And one day I was speaking with another one of my co-inspirators, co-creators, and we were both feeling this way. And we realized like, oh, maybe we actually just do need to step back. And maybe we actually do, for ourselves, to take a break, and for others in the group to be able to run it the way that they want to, and to be able to find voice within this collective that's not our vision, and to create more space for that, and to actually be able to shift into a cooperative instead of a model that we're all very well trained in. And it's hard to break out of the model of like, a couple people charismatic leading the group and others following. Like, that's not what any of us wanted. We stepped into this because we wanted to be equal collaborators. And sometimes that also means stepping back and stepping forward and recognizing that each other need that space. And I'm so grateful for all of my Conscious Minds family because they allowed that. They allowed us to step back in a positive way. There was no, hurt feelings. We're still connected. You know, when I need support in other initiatives, they're the first people I call on, and they always answer. And so the relationships have not been lost. And the memories and the inspirations that we share together have not been lost. And I might go back in 2 years. I might rejoin and become an active member again. Who knows where the future will guide me. But it was really hard, really super hard to step back. And right when I stepped back, I was obviously not in a great mental health space already. And then losing that connection to this like felt sense of purpose, I just went like, and went really far down into, you know, like I had to rediscover myself. I had to refine myself. I had to refine like what makes me passionate, what, you know, makes me feel joy. How do I feel like I can contribute to the world again? And it took a while. Like I'm not talking a week. Maybe I'm even still finding it, but like it took 6 months, it took a year of going down and visiting those dark places within myself, and doing some of that healing work. That's actually really important for the broader goals that I was trying to achieve with Conscious Minds Cooperative. Because I had to take time and look at myself in the mirror and realize, what did I do that created a situation where I wasn't feeling well? How did I not express my needs within the, you know, collaborative? How did I block other voices? And then just even rediscovering what makes me feel good, like it brings you up and down. But that was so important, because if I hadn't taken that step back, then my world would not have been open to co-creating Rooted and Rising as a leadership program that was really a response. Because I talked with my Conscious Minds community. I said, you know, I asked, what do you want? What do you envision before I left? And what part of what came back was a felt sense of a need for more support, more mentors, more confidence, more skills building. And so by stepping back from this organization that it felt like, how could I possibly step back? This is in my entire life. I ended up being able to heal myself and serve that exact same community in a new way, and bringing in new support systems. And I think so often when we think about stepping back from our activism, whether it's because we just need a week of not thinking about this stuff, we just need a week to lay on the couch and sleep as much as we can sleep and eat as much as we can eat, or whatever it is that, you know, you do in your healing time, or whether it's recognizing that the organization you've connected with maybe isn't as aligned as you thought it was, and you're feeling a need to go discover new communities. It can be really, really challenging to find that courage and that trust in yourself, that you'll find other things and you'll find other people that you connect with, and that you can continue to grow your experiences and possibilities. And, you know, to know that when we don't step back when we need to, it's actually harmful, not just to ourselves, but to the community that we've committed to and that we love. I've seen, you know, a few of my elders and mentors who I love and I learn so much from. And sometimes I also learn from them what not to do, as we all learn from each other. And I've watched so many who just keep pushing themselves and push themselves and push themselves and ignore the burnout and ignore the emotional burden that they just need to release for a while. And they push and they push. And not only do they get physically sick, they get emotionally sick, but they actually become harder to work with because of those things. Because when you're super tired and you're super stressed, when you feel this huge burden, when you have a lot of sadness and anger in you that you're not letting out, it's really hard to collaborate. It's really hard to hear other people genuinely. It's really hard to hear when someone disagrees with you or says, you hurt my feelings when you said this comment, or need that kind of interpersonal healing. Those things they're already challenging, and it becomes extra challenging when you're not feeling good about yourself. And so it's actually part of the commitment to being young eco leaders. It's part of the commitment to Earth that when we're feeling tired, we need to sleep. When you're feeling thirsty, drink some water. Because again, if we're not well, then we can't do the work that makes our earth healthier, and that makes our relationships healthier, and that makes ourselves feel good. So it's, again, that kind of like, you can't separate it. It's not saying, oh, I'm failing my activism because I'm not good enough and I can't sustain this energy. That's so often where our mind goes, because we've been trained in this like very capitalist thinking that wants you to go, succeed, make money, own things, push forward in this idea of like progress. And to actually be able to step outside of that is challenging work. And to say, actually, what success is me feeling good and contributing my gifts to the world. Feeling good, connecting with my purpose, and actually being able to share those gifts. And to really think about that, and to think about, like, what do I need? Like, even in preparing for this call today, I took the whole morning. I didn't decide to, jam in a bunch of other work and emails that I have to do. Like, those emails can wait. I needed to sit with my plants outside. I needed to breathe the fresh air. I needed to stretch, eat breakfast, and just get into a positive state of mind. And that is the work too. That's the important work too. That is political, and that is transformative, because so many of us have not been able to do that. So many of our ancestors have not been able to do that. And by giving ourselves that space, by connecting with ourselves, by being able to be vulnerable in that way, we're doing some of that healing work that our earth and our ancestors are calling on us to do, and why we're here right now in this really important time, in this transformational time. It's a healing time. And that starts with ourselves. I'm going way off topic here, but an important elder that I have learned from a lot over the years, Maria Montejo. So she's Toronto-based now. She's the director of the Dodom-Kanesha Indigenous Cultural and Education Center. And her ancestry and connection is she's from the Mamjakaltek, or the Popti, Indigenous community that we know, part of the broader alliance of what we know as the Mayan people, rooted in Guatemala. And one day she was talking at Conscious Minds Camp and sharing some wisdom, and she shared with us this idea that I think is really, really important for me, which is the idea that our body, your body, is your first piece of land. I'm going to say that again and let it sink in. Your body is your first piece of land. We come from the earth. When we die, our body becomes the land. Literally, scientifically, we literally become the land, and we come from the land. And when you think about healing the land, and think about your responsibility and your commitment that you've made, being a part of Fridays for Future, being on this live stream call right now, how do you want to care for the land? How do you understand what you need to do for land, with land? And then apply that to yourself, to your own body. Your body, your first piece of land, needs clean water, and everyone's does. And that's a right, a human right that we're all fighting for. Your body needs rest. Your body needs care and love. The land needs love and attention and care. And our body is our first piece, and we carry our ancestors in our bodies. Scientifically, we know we have their DNA. We know we can carry trauma in our DNA. We know we can heal that trauma. And on a deeper level, more importantly, we just know that, you know you come from your parents, you come from your grandparents, and like they're in you. And we carry those traumas, and we carry that wisdom that's been developed over experience, generations and generations. And we can tap into that in our body. We can listen to our body just like we need to listen to the land. And when we start to do that, your intuition develops and you can listen to it more, test it out, realize how smart your body is, how smart your feelings are. Your feelings are very, very smart. They know a lot. When you feel tired, when you feel sad, when you feel angry, it's telling you something. Your emotions are speaking to you. And I think that if we can start to listen to our bodies more, listen to the land more, they would tell us, just like this virus is telling us right now, slow down, slow down. Take time with yourself. And trust that you have what you need. You have what you need to create the world that you want. And there are millions of people around the world who want to create that world too, and are actively working on it. And if sometimes you need a nap, that's okay, because there's millions of other people that are creating this world together, this better world. So you take that nap, just like you would want me to take a nap if I was feeling tired and cranky, right? So that's where the like needing and that strength to take a break, to step back when you need to, becomes really strong, is to recognize that like that's your responsibility to your body, that's your responsibility to the land, is to step back when you need to step back, so that when you step forward again, you are even more in yourself, you're even more in your body, and even better able to transform this society that desperately needs it. Yeah.
Most definitely. I think you there was a lot that you put for a lot of people to kind of unpack for themselves. Because I think one is our body being the first thing we should pay attention to, as being from the land and going back to the land. But then also, I think when people start to reflect on it, I think your example of, what did the first spending time on preparing for this, and spending and taking that time, putting that time aside and being consistent with that. And I think I'm not personally, like, I'm not totally there yet, because right now, a lot of, for me on a personal level, and people are, I guess, are in different stages with finding how to confront themselves and how to be real with themselves. But it's something I'm really like reflecting on too right now, on how I can make my day better, because just right now some of my decisions changed on what I was going to do after. I have a lot of time to just go outside and sit now, just like mentally as you were speaking, I was like, I need to do this. I think it's so very important for people to kind of reflect on it, but then also recognize how like everyone's path to wellness is different. And because you did address some of it, but do you have any like further comments or further insights on how everyone gets there differently?
Yeah, everyone does get there differently. And I even think that getting there is maybe, I don't know, tricky language, because it's constant work. Just like the land acknowledgement, it's one of those things, wellness, that's like a life engagement. It's something throughout our entire lives that we get to learn more about ourselves and unveil what brings us a sense of happiness and well-being. And I think, like, well, self-care, well-being looks different for every person, for the same reason that there's different genres of music, different culinary, the different foods to eat, different, herbs to choose in your garden. People are different. We're all a unique compilation of cells and DNA, And we come from different places and different traditions, and our ancestors tapped into different sources of wisdom of the greater source. And, you know, we all need to attune to our uniqueness. And just like the forest is beautiful because it's biodiverse, it works because it's diverse, because there are so many different types of beings with different needs and different offerings, that we're able to have an ecosystem, that we're able to live. So the same thing with wellness is like, it really is a practice of finding what works for you and what feels good. Many years ago, when I was first starting to kind of get open to ideas of well-being and activism, and first starting to understand that spiritual, emotional is political as well, just like political is spiritual. I learned from one of my elders, Nene, and my friend gave me this book, and it was 1,000 pages plus, really thick. It was thick, and this big and this big. And it was a book of meditations, breathing meditations from the Tantric tradition, which, for anyone who doesn't know, I am no expert, but the Tantric tradition is a school of philosophy and practice for spirituality, a spiritual practice. And this book had 1,000 different breathing exercises. Okay, using breath as meditation, right? We know we breathe in, we breathe out, it calms us down. Okay, it's how so many traditions around the world encourage us to tap into connection with the unknown, with the beyond us. And at the beginning of the book, it says, here's 1,000 breathing meditations. One of them will work for you. Maybe it'll be the first one. Maybe it'll be number 312. Maybe it'll be number 999. But there is one breathing meditation in here that you'll do and feel that it works. Feel that connection, feel that sense of inner peace. And then it's the task to go through the book and try the first one. Oh, that didn't quite feel good. Try the second one. That didn't do anything for me. Try the third one. And it's that persistence to keep trying, and one of them will work. And I think that book got it right. Whoever tapped in and found that wisdom to give all those exercises and give that instruction at the beginning got it right, that there are 1,000,001 different ways for us to connect to a sense of well-being, and something will work for you. And just because one thing works for Aminah and it doesn't work for you, there's nothing wrong with you. It's just not the right activity for you. You know, in the same way that we have our own passions and gifts. So just to use a really simple example, like cooking makes me feel good. I really enjoy cooking. My partner doesn't enjoy it so much. It doesn't like give him a sense of like love in life. And that's okay. I sometimes I cook, or I make something new. I don't know if you can hear the sounds of cooking happening behind me right now. And that makes me feel good, but it doesn't make other people feel good. And so it's not something that they would do when they're feeling bad that day and they need to do something that makes them feel better. But that being said, we know that there's some things that work for a lot of us, and that maybe one of these work for you. And maybe if you're not feeling so good on a particular day, it's a matter of pausing and saying, hold on, I'm not feeling good. What's going on? Why aren't I feeling good? And then what's going to make me feel better? I want to feel better before anything else. Yes, I got an assignment to do. Yes, I have readings to do. Yes, I have to go do that online protest. But before any of that, I need to feel good. What's going to make me feel good? Going on a walk. That feels good. Going on at least a 45-minute walk to really start to transform and see new parts of the world. Dancing alone in your bathroom, singing feels good. Eating healthy food and checking your diet and saying, are healthy things going in my body? Maybe that's part of the reason why I'm not feeling so good. Did I get sleep last night? Did I spend 6 hours on social media yesterday looking at all of the horrible things happening in the world? Maybe I should look at some good news. maybe I should go call a friend. Maybe I should go sit with a tree. Maybe I should go, check out one pretty flower that I find outside. Maybe I should go play a video game. I don't know, whatever it is that makes you feel good. Like there's something out there, many things. And it's a matter of experimenting and finding what works for you and finding what doesn't work for you. Another metaphor, the final one I'll leave on this question that I really love is to think about it like a buffet, like life like a buffet. And you got to try different things in the buffet to understand what foods you like and what foods you don't like. And you got to try and you go along the buffet and you pick something up and put it on your plate, you give it a taste, and, oh, that doesn't taste very good. I'm not going to take that one again. I'm going to go try something else. You go along the buffet line and you find more and more foods that agree with your individual unique palate. And then you're going to learn more about yourself and you learn, oh, I actually really like sweet foods. I got a sweet tooth. I wonder what other sweet foods I can try that are going to also bring joy to my taste buds. And then I'm going to go search. I'm going to keep searching, and then I'm going to find something sweet that I actually don't really like at all. I'm going to learn more about what kind of sweetness it is that I like. And for me, this is still an active process. I'm not happy all the time, nor would I necessarily want to be. It's a process, we got to experience the bad with the good in life. But for me, like I'm 28, I'm still learning what I like. I know some things, and every day that I open myself up to it, I learn about myself more and more. By interacting with other people and hearing about their stories and what they do, I learn about myself more and more. And I expect to be doing that for the rest of my life. And I want to be doing that for the rest of my life because it feels really good to get to know yourself and to learn what makes you happy. And I think so often in especially environmental activism, we get into this mindset that like, because we live in an unhappy and unwell society that's causing damage to the planet, we cannot enjoy ourselves. I can't enjoy myself because the moment that I do anything, there's this like ripple effect and this chain of effect, and it hurts the earth, right? I love bubble tea, but how do I get bubble tea when the straw and the plastic and all those chemicals that go into it and the palm sugar that was brought from the forest, and like it feels so hard to let go of that guilt. To let go of that guilt, of our collective sense of shame and guilt of what we've done to each other and what we've done to our Mother Earth and what we've done to our kin, the other animals and insects and species and plants around this planet, and what we've done to the Earth's life, the ability to produce like new forms of life. Of course, new diversity will come. We know that. We know the Earth is living and will continue to produce and innovate life. But it hurts to know what we've done, and it hurts to try and imagine yourself like feeling good and being happy when so much bad is happening. And that's real too. And those emotions, we have to sit with them. I had a breakdown 2 days ago where I spent 3 hours crying because COVID was pushing back my leadership program that I got excited for, because of horrible police violence that I was hearing about within my own city, across the border, and then it just all hits and the whole wave comes of everything that's wrong. And that's okay too, to sit with that. That's part of wellness, is not pushing it away, not being afraid of it. As one author, Donna Haraway, says, of staying with the trouble. And that's what each of us do so brilliantly. Why we're a part of Friday Freezer, why there's activism, is because we're willing to sit with the trouble and to stay with it. And don't discount that as like, oh, that's not wellness, because it is. That's wellness too, is allowing yourself to cry and then allowing yourself to feel good again, and to take that time to bring yourself back to emotional stability, to bring yourself back to a place where you can feel good and therefore create a world that feels good. And that looks different for everybody, how we get there. And it's part of our duty. It's part of our duty to the earth to find what those ways are for ourselves. Yeah. Like,
It's definitely
what makes you feel good?
what makes I've it's usually it's very draining, but it also makes me feel good. It's spending time with my younger siblings. Um,
Mm.
my two younger brothers, they can be very excited, and they're just doing everything, and they're prancing about, and they're talking about some new term, and um I'm not, I think it's like as soon as you're out of high school or as soon as you're out of middle school, that's when you start missing out on everything, like on all the new
Mhm.
terms and everything. So those are like spending time with them, um, as much as, and I guess maybe if you compare it to activism, it brings you joy, but it also drains you, in some ways. So now I have to think of what brings me joy and doesn't drain me. Well,
Yeah.
sleep.
Or
I
to
think
just find
sleep.
that balance.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just really about balance to say this gives me joy until it reaches a tipping point, and then I gotta take a step back.
Yeah. But I definitely think with the events happening around the world and in Toronto, um, and in the US, and I think that was something, um, it can be very difficult to kind of process and um, be real with yourself about, and then also kind of, how much can you burden yourself with, right? So for me personally, it's um, and I got into a negative place because of this, because I was being exposed to so much. People would come to me because, as soon as you talk about environment enough in certain conversations, there's a label put on you, where someone will ask you about, something that happened, or they're like, this issue is happening around the world. You should focus on that. Um, but it became very draining, and it became kind of very difficult to kind of find a place. And there are also so many discussions going on in the environmental movement where it's like, do we agree with this, or do we not agree with this, or is this the best for marginalized communities? And for me, the lesson I've learned right now, the lesson's always changing, is you hear both sides, you listen to both sides, you take in all the information, and then you proceed forward with what your heart tells you. And I found like the I'm not I'm not as conflicted with myself as I was before, because you're just going, you did your job, and you tried to learn about something to your capacity with what makes the most sense in, creating a better world, right? And sometimes it's staying silent, and sometimes I feel like it's sitting down and having a moment with yourself. Um, Sometimes it's just recognizing other people's pain and other people's hurt, and um, really listening to their stories, and moving from a place of empathy forward in your actions and making a commitment. I also find, especially when things are happening around the world, and because when we talk about different paths, originally I was in this mindset where, after activism, or when I get to some place, I'll be able to afford wellness. And I was in this place where I was kind of focused on, purchasing items, or having like this really expensive gym membership with a trainer, or spending money on like spas and massages, or all that, associated, the ads we see or in the movies with what wellness means. And I think getting past that, and this just goes circles back to your question of what makes me feel good. I think it's like sitting outside and like just observing animals and just observing the world. And I think and being quiet outside to give that space, because I noticed, um like as soon as, let's say, if there's a basketball and you start bouncing it, the birds will fly away, the squirrel might get scared, um or like things of the sort. So just being quiet, giving space to other parts of nature, and that makes me feel good. But it also, what's your understanding of like expensive things in wellness, and then also how the co-op you co-founded is about paying what you can. So I think that kind of goes into.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think you're right. I think we so often get sold this idea that wellness costs money, that you only can feel good when you have a lot of money. And until then, you have to feel bad and work really, 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 really hard and work yourself to the bone until you make it. Uh, and I think that that's the problem. That's part of our framing of this world as very, right? That's the consumerism. That's us seeing like, can I consume wellness? Let me pay for it and consume it from the outside. But that's not where feelings come from. That's not where your heart is. Those things are inside, and that's where wellness happens. And in the between, in the relationships, because this consumer idea of wellness, this capitalist version of wellness, is very much about the individual. And it's focused on, hey, you individual who aren't feeling well, let's bring you out to a retreat, and you're going to get that gym membership, and you're going to drink that, $10 cold pressed juice, and you're going to feel great. But part of what earth activism, environmentalism, opening myself up to Indigenous wisdom has opened for me is an understanding that my wellness does not exist separately from the wellness of earth and the wellness of others. And there's an East African philosophical tradition called Ubuntu, which means I am because we are. So that sense of like, I literally only exist and I can literally only understand myself because I talk to you, because I interact with other people, because I have a community that's taught me language that I experience things with, and then I interact and I learn and I exist, right? And that shift into understanding that you and the world are not separate. You are, but you're not. You're the same, but you're separate, unique, diverse, version. To understand that wellness is inside, and that it is just like you said, those small things. Like, it does not cost a penny to go on a walk. It doesn't cost a thing to sit with the dandelion that's growing out of the crack of cement near your front door and visit it every day and watch it change and ask yourself, what can I learn from this dandelion? And go online and research it and learn that you can eat the leaves and fry them up in some oil and taste that greens right from your outside. Those things take time, they cost time and commitment, but they don't cost money. And I think the deeper wellness pieces don't cost money. And that's the like worky pieces. Those are the pieces that like are part of our transformation. Sitting with yourself and a candle and thinking about your grandmother that's passed, that's still with you, and thinking about what she would say to you and how she'd tell you how amazing you are. That is wellness that is healing. And that's the wellness that we should be after, because it's that authentic one, and then when we start to value is that idea that like we are well because of others. So like, I can't just go out to the forest by myself and create the world that I want and practice cooperation and practice, helping the land and practice, restorative justice and participatory democracy. Like, I don't do those things by myself. I can only do them with others, and to then care for others and to enable that diversity and to enable us to come together, and to trust that it'll work out. Like, we did a pay what you can. It means we're fundraising, bringing in donations. up till the, week before camp started, we had no idea whether we had enough money to do the things that we were going to do, pay all the elders honorariums, to feed everybody. But it was that deep sense of trust and that idea of like, well, we want to be here. We're committed to making it happen. And we're just all going to contribute what we can, and it'll work out. And it does. Some people paid $800 to come to a 2-week camp, and some people paid $20. And there was no resentment, because that's what they were able to pay. And nobody has to know those amounts of who paid what. We only have to know that we all put in resources to the best of our capacity, and us all putting in those resources allowed us to have this experience of healing and wellness together. And to remember that connection between each other. Yeah, that's what I would say about wellness and money.
Yeah, thank you for that. There are definitely like other topics that we kind of wanted to get to during this call. But I think these discussion, and I think rather than focusing on, like getting through the questions and rather focusing on a conversation, kind of represents like the theme as a whole, is it's not about, getting through the list or, getting till the end. It's about doing it at your own pace, and enjoying the process, which I've definitely felt as a student that's learned. And yeah, so in this sphere. So I was wondering, I guess inviting you to do closing, and that is one form of wellness that people can, do. So Roxy, on to you.
Yeah, thank you, Aminah. And thank you, Fridays for Future. So I'm just going to close us with a quick closing. And I invite everybody who's watching this and listening to kind of readjust yourself if you're not comfortable. Maybe put both your feet on the floor. Do a little stretch if you need to. Let out a little like sigh. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to invite you to maybe close your eyes, maybe just like lower them, or maybe stare at the screen, whatever you want, whatever feels good. And I'm going to offer some words of gratitude. I close on words of gratitude for 2 reasons. One reason is because gratitude makes me feel good, and gratitude is one of those things that pretty much makes everybody feel good. When you give thanks for things, it opens up in your mind more possibilities of things to be grateful for, and you realize how much you truly have. And it allows us to kind of be present with those things and to appreciate them. And the other reason that I do gratitude is because I'm learning, and I've learned from the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, which is one of the confederacies of many Indigenous nations that came together in treaty pre-colonization and learned how to live in peace together. So a lot to learn there. And one of the practices that they have culturally is that if there's more than 3 people gathered together in a space, you say your gratitude, your thanksgiving before anything else, and you end in gratitude and thanksgiving before anything else. And I brought this in as a practice in my meetings, in my spaces, to start with gratitude. And I'm really grateful to get to end in gratitude today, because being in gratitude, it reminds us what we have in common, and it allows us to find peace and collaboration more easily. So yeah, I'm gonna just offer some gratitude, and I'm gonna give a little bit of space after I see each one, and I'm gonna invite you to say it maybe out loud or in your mind to yourself, or just sit with it. I'm grateful for water. I'm grateful for the clean water that I have, and I'm grateful for the water that makes up my body, my brain, the air. I'm grateful for the water that came down from the sky last night and fed my plant friends. And I am grateful for the memories and the lessons that water carries. I'm grateful for the land. I'm grateful for soil. I'm grateful for seeds, and I'm grateful for all of the worms and microbes and bacteria and mushrooms that decompose the toxic and turn them back into thriving life. I'm grateful for the animals around me. I'm grateful for those that walk and fly and crawl and wiggle and squirm. I'm grateful for all of the plant medicines and all of the healers around the world that have learned to commune with those plants and source for us an understanding of all of the things in nature that are there to take care of us, that we have already. I'm grateful for the sun and all of the stars and the fire that gives energy to this whole world. And I'm grateful to the lesson of the sun that we can give continuously, that we can provide life for others. I'm grateful to the rocks and the moon. I'm grateful to all of the teachers of the world. And I'm grateful to all of those who offer support and healing to others. I'm grateful to each and every person who uses their voice to speak up against what is unjust, to speak up against violence. And I'm grateful to every person who puts their own body on the line to protect the land and to protect other humans and creatures from violence. I'm grateful to those who find solutions in nature and are creating new forms of being for us that fuse technology and connection with ancient wisdom. I'm grateful for all those who are doing their ancestral healing work to heal the traumas from both the side of the victim and the side of the oppressor. I'm grateful. I'm grateful for Fridays for Future, for giving voice and space for young people to claim and reclaim a better, healed world. And I'm grateful for all of the technology and the humans and the mycelia and the plants and the animals and the greater source, some call him God, Allah, creator, the unknown mystery of life, source, earth, Mother Earth. And I'm grateful for myself. And I love myself. And I deeply love myself. And I love my family. And I am grateful to share that love through my gifts. Thank you. Thank you. Sorry, I went a little over time.
Thank you, Roxy. That was, yeah, I think being grateful to the world and then coming back and being grateful to yourself was the most, yeah, fun way. So I think this is a good spot to, I'm like whispering now, kind of end off. But to kind of end off, here we're being appreciative to everyone who was able to join in. You can keep yourself updated on our social media. You can email us at fridaysforfuturetoronto@to@gmail.com. Yeah, so thank you so much, Roxy.
And if you want to reach me, you can email Fridays for Future too, and they can forward it to me. So if anyone out there would like to connect, I am open to connections.
Yeah. So, and I think we'll put up a post as well. There are definitely, I think, important lessons that youth and people of all ages can take and try to do better. So yeah, thank you. And I hope you have, and I hope everyone has a really good day. Yeah. So bye.
All right.
I think we can go now.